Hello everyone, and welcome to my coffee shop. It's been a while since I last posted a video, so I thought it was a good time to kind of address the hiatus from creating content. And this topic is especially important because I personally was going through a bit of a phase of burnout. Now, you may be able to relate to this, but I had taken on way too many projects and I was really stretching myself too thin. So I thought it would be good to take a few months away from creating content and try to finish up some of the projects I was working on so I could focus more on the channel again. And if this is your first time here and you found this video by chance, then I wanted to let you know that mental health is something that's very important to me. I emphasize this a lot on my channel. I emphasize a lot in my Discord. And from time to time, I'll make these videos talking about some of the mental health issues that come with working in game dev or just working in general, and try to give people some tips on how to address those and maybe find a better balance between doing work and mental health. I also want to emphasize I'm not a psychologist. I have no formal training. These are just things that work for me, and they may work for you as well. But mental health is really not a one-size-fits-all type thing. Everyone needs to kind of understand how to work through it for themselves. So I'm not trying to sit here and tell you how to live your life or changes that you should make. These really are just some tips that work for me, and I hope they can work for you as well. And so this is a little chart that I created that I think kind of explains the cycles that a lot of us go through. And when you're learning a new skill or you're trying to build on those skills, you're trying to build a side job or you're trying to do side projects or even just for hobbies, I think it's very common to go through a similar pattern to this. And I made this chart just as kind of a representation of the cycles that I go through personally. This pattern may look familiar to you, but I think it's pretty common among people who are doing side projects, whether it be for a hobby or trying to make some income or just trying to do some personal growth and trying to learn a new skill. I think it's very common to go through a cycle of motivation and despair. And I've noticed this pattern in myself where I tend to get like super motivated and I really want to kind of take it all on. I maybe take on multiple projects at once and think I can do this, I can manage it. And I just eventually will reach a peak where I feel like it's just too much and I can't bear anymore. And then I just kind of start to spiral downward, and it takes me a long time to kind of pull myself out of that. And my goal is to try to, I guess, lessen the swing between that motivation and that valley so that we could end up something like this white line in the middle where maybe the motivation peaks aren't as high, but also those valleys aren't as low either. And we stay a little bit closer to that center line. And I just put together a few tips that really help me to maintain my focus and not get too high or too low on either side. A lot of this comes down to managing stress, because I think stress, for me at least, is the lead cause of burnout. So when I have a hard time managing that stress and I start to get really overwhelmed by it, then that's what starts to initiate that downward spiral. So the first thing that I like to do is create a work list, and you can just create a list of all of the different tasks that you want to perform in that week or that month or by the next release, and you just try to identify a few things on that list for each session that you're working and set a very clear goal that when these things are done, you're going to take a break or you're going to move on to something else. But I think having a big picture list of everything really helps me kind of manage my stress, and it also helps to just check things off that list as you go. Now, if you're not familiar with Kanban, I recommend doing some research. There's a lot of really good softwares out there that will help you create a Kanban board. Trello being probably the one that I hear the most about. It's a free tool where you can create these task list boards. And then there's some psychological benefit to moving the task between each of the buckets. It really helps to visualize that personal progress in your projects. And if you're working on a team, it also helps to assign the tasks to different team members and make sure that the work is getting done within the timeline. the next thing I like to do is to create a schedule. And one important part of this is scheduling a definite start time and a definite stop time, and also making sure that you're taking breaks in between. Whatever amount of time that you want to spend each week on your project, create a schedule for that week, whether it be an hour a day, whether it be in the morning or the afternoon, and write out what things you want to accomplish during each of those sessions. And this should help you visualize what you need to get done, and that way you can focus a little bit more. Usually I'll create these schedules at the beginning of each week and check on the ones from the previous week, make sure I got everything done. Anything that didn't get done, I'll move to the current week, and just kind of focus my energy on the things that need to be done that week. And I think this really helps to manage stress, because you're able to compartmentalize the work that you're going to be doing. And then when it's done, you know that you're done for the week, and you can move on to the next week and focus your energy there. And this one I think is a little bit hard for people when they're first starting out, but as time goes on, I think you become more and more attuned to things that may trigger you and cause you to move into that downward spiral into the valley. So this takes a little bit of introspection and being able to examine yourself and examine your patterns of behaviors. But ultimately the goal is to understand things that may set you off or may cause you to become overwhelmed, and trying to mitigate those things, or at least be able to recognize them when they're happening and then pivot so that you don't start that downward spiral. And the last one, also, this comes down to a little bit of introspection, but don't overload yourself. You know what you can accomplish in any given week. This is where creating that schedule is going to help, to where you can kind of set that schedule for each week, whether it be 5 hours or 10 hours per week. Try to set out a reasonable amount of work that you can get done during that week, and stick to just those things. Now this may take some practice, so I recommend in the beginning not to be too hard on yourself with the schedule. Set a schedule for each week, and then at the end of the week, give yourself some grace if you don't get everything done. It's always okay to push the things to the next week, especially when you're a solo dev and it's really just your own personal goals that you're trying to accomplish. And as you go on, you'll start to recognize what a reasonable workload for you is, and you'll be able to schedule out projects well in advance. You can even schedule out 2 to 3 months and understand how much you can get done in that timeline. And if you remember our curve from before, the goal of this one is to shrink those patterns so they're not as drastic, but also to try to move the whole thing up as well, so that we're not going into those valleys. Now you'll notice the peaks aren't as high as they are during the beginning, but if we were to take the sum of all the times that we're above that line, it's probably greater over the course of this plot. And therefore, we're being more productive, we're maintaining our mental health better, we're not going into those deep valleys of despair, and it just overall, I think, will allow us to be more productive and more healthy. And one final note, I think something that really helps most people, especially me, is to be part of a community of other people that can support you. Now, sometimes solo dev, it feels really lonely. It feels like you just have this huge task that you want to accomplish. And as long as you're working by yourself, there's not really anyone else to help you. Now, even though you're working on your own project, you may find others that are working on their projects, and you can help motivate each other and maybe even collaborate on some things, share some ideas, share some progress, share some wins. And I think being a part of a community like this is really helpful. And there are many communities out there, but I do just want to say I have a Discord. There's a lot of really awesome people in there. And if you haven't already, I recommend that you take a look at it, show yourself around, and I think you'll notice that it's a great place to meet other devs and socialize. And there will be a link for the Discord in the description of this video, so please hop on in there. So that's all I had for today. Again, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for being a part of this community. I appreciate all the support I've been getting from everyone, and it's really helped me to kind of pull myself out of this little place of mental stress. And I hope to be making a lot more videos soon. The next one is going to be about the game jam that I'm hosting in July, so keep an eye out for that one. Sub if you haven't already, join the Discord, and I'll see you in the next video.